If you're from Calne, chances are you know someone who worked at C&T Harris. The Wiltshire factory employed 2,000 people in its heyday. 5,000 pigs were processed every week to make bacon, ham, sausages, pies and all pork products. But in 1984, the factory was closed and demolished. It was a huge blow to the community. 40 years on, former staff like me have been sharing our memories. So how did we all end up working at Harris's? Have a listen.
When I received the results of my O-levels, I was so disappointed. I had a bit of breakfast. I walked down to Harris's, spoke to a commissioner and said, I'd like to speak to someone about an engineering apprenticeship. He made a phone call and he said, I'll take you up right away.
There was one old chap, when I very first went there, they used to call him Dobby. I never knew his name. He said to me, you know, Sheila, the Harris family are so good. It's like a family. Any child who left school on a Friday night, if they didn't have a job to go to, they could come in Monday morning to Harris's and they would be found a job.
I started working in the factory when I was 15, when I left school without doing any GCEs. It was very nerve-wracking to walk into such a huge building and find your way. And I worked in the postal department with 2 other girls. And we made friends instantly because I already vaguely knew them. They were a little bit older than me.
I had to turn up at the time office on the front yard where all the lorries used to back in to be loaded. They governed the check card system that we all had to ding, and they gave you your new your brand new overalls and that.
I was a messenger girl for the first year in C&T Harris. My father seemed to have had a word, I don't know, so he told me. And after a year, I moved to the printing department in Harris's and worked there for several years.
I went in as a messenger girl, and then after that, I was in the boning office where the parts of the meat was going, and that was charged out on a sheet of paper, put the weights on.
And my husband was in the army.
He was in the army.
And we got quarters in the Compton Bassett, and he was sent back to Singapore. And there was a part-time job. And I've been in the big house. It reminded me of the Sound of Music.
My husband was a lorry driver in the factory. Every night they were called the trunkers. They went off to certain points with all the sausages, pies, etc. But from then the vans came and collected them and went off and delivered them. That was a nightly job. They got back in the morning. And you didn't get up to Birmingham in 2 hours like you do now. It could really a full-time job to get up to Birmingham and back again. Actually, it was him that got me the job. You know, said that my wife can do this and can do that. And said, oh, we'll find her a job somewhere.
Lots of us got a job at the factory because family members were already working there. I remember my father saying, what if I have a word with so-and-so? Do you think you perhaps might like that trade or job? If your relations were good workers, that was half the battle.
My uncles worked in there, my dad worked in there, and I think my mum worked there before she was married. And my aunt, she was the manager of the messenger girls. All the girls, when you went in, first of all, you had to go into the postal department and deliver all the mail all around the offices. And then before you sort of started in other places, they took you all over the factory to see what was going on in the factory. And I had so many relations in there. For every office we went into, it was hello auntie, hello uncle.
My father worked in the factory. My mother worked there before I was born. I had an uncle who was a foreman in the sausage department, an uncle who was a foreman in the pie department, an uncle who was the machine minder in setter in the canning department, an uncle who was under foreman in the canning department, eventually became head of hygiene services, and the other uncle was an electrician, and his wife was in charge of adding up the times and sorting out for wages and the messenger service. The other auntie was a nurse, but she'd left before I joined.
Everyone of the family worked there except one who was at home looking after the house and everything. And she was drafted in one day to take a family portrait, which used to be in the managing director's office on the back wall. They were trying to prove that they were a family firm and they were very proud of supporting Calne families.
I think looking at my own family, I had a lot of my dad's cousins worked in there, and my uncles and aunts worked there. And of course, women in those days didn't always work. So they might have had my mum had an evening job just in the pre-pack. That was packing up the bacon rashers. The men, all my uncles, they all worked there all their lives until they retired. It was convenient. You know, they all lived in Calne and rode their bikes down to work. My dad worked at the byproducts factory up by the old station. They took all the bits and bobs they couldn't use, and it was an awful smelly place. The stench of it hung over the whole of Calne, and it was right next to Fineham School, which was lovely for the kids going there, really because there was always this awful odour.
So my dad would come home from work about 5 o'clock, and my mum went into the sausage packing section, and she would go at about 5:30 off to work and then come back 10 o'clock at night. And then she'd be there in the morning for us and get us all off to school. And she quite liked it. She said it was nice to be, it was very sociable. She really liked the community. You know, she said, they're always telling jokes. And she used to go with a lady that lived in our street. The lady that lived in our street used to come and stand in our kitchen, and she always wore the stiletto heels. She made marks all in the tiles. Or from her heels of her stilettos. My dad used to go mad because he was the one that laid the tiles.
So did she wear her stilettos to work?
Yes, she wore them to work. She wore them everywhere. I can't believe that she... I don't think anyone would these days, but wearing stilettos to pack sausages.
And I gather that you also met your wife.
Yes.
At Harris's.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I can. The last day before a Christmas holiday, a friend of mine called Michael Brown, he said, let's have a walk around the offices. He said, see who we can find. What was the mistletoe about? And we did. We went into the telephone exchange. These two girls were in there, had a chat with them. Got on quite well. Then the following Saturday, we met at the Lansdowne Hotel. And I was coming out of the door with my rugby bag, and who should be coming in the door was one of the girls from the telephone exchange. So I gave her a kiss. And then it was about, 4 or 5 weeks later, the rugby club organised a tramps ball. So I gave her a call and said, would you like to go to a tramps ball? That was it, fixed.
Oh, lovely. And you're still married today?
Still married today.
We had a Christmas party, combined Christmas party, about 4 years after I started, I suppose. And that's when I met my husband. And that's when we started going out. We always had a big Christmas do on Boxing Day at my mum's. So she invited him, and I'd only been going out with him a couple of days. You know?
We all made friends at the factory, but some found love too. But enough of that for now. Time to get to work.
I was a secretary to the factory manager, which are called PAs nowadays, personal assistants. For me, that was quite a job for a 17-year-old. So I'd get up and I'd get dressed, and it was always smart because you're in an office. And I would walk to work because I lived locally. For lunchtime, I would walk back home.
So how did you get to work?
Well, I used to go on my bicycle. I used to have a bicycle shed down near enough outside where Martin House is now. But a lot of people used to leave their bicycles on the town hill. There are bicycles all over the town where people rode their bikes to work. The offices started 8:30 and finished at 1:45. so that we got away before the factory came back for 1 o'clock. And their factory finished at 4:30 and we finished 5. Because when the factory was let out, you could hardly cross over the Strand with all the people coming out the factory.
It was getting here for 6:45 more or less, wasn't it? That's the time we used to get here. Very early mornings. My father worked on the farm, so he'd say, I'll give you a call once and I'll go for you again. So you got out with him, although you could have had another hour. Cycle 3 miles into Devizes.
They picked up at Monkton, then they come to Avebury, and then went up Yatesbury, didn't they? Picked Yatesbury and then Cherrock. Yeah.
Was it a bus put on by Harris's or was it?
Yeah. I suppose it was Thomas's bus, was it?
Yeah, I think it was Thomas's buses then.
Yeah. And then that very bad winter when all that snow. What year was that?
In the 60s, early
Yeah.
60s.
We walked in.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we walked in.
I was born.
From where? From Avebury. We walked in, all the snow drifts and that.
62.
We hadn't been here about an hour and they said you can go home again.
Yeah.
Did you walk in?
No, we never walked in. We were told not to come in because it's so blocked.
Yeah.
Take the whole day off, so we did. We went up on Railway Downs.
Yeah.
It's the silliest thing you could have done is go up on the Downs. I mean, it was so deep, it was unbelievable, but yeah, a great day out.
I
Really
think
nice and being
that
paid.
bad snow was the year I was born, wasn't it? 62, so you would have been home.
Waking up was always hard. But I would always have a breakfast insisted by my mother, and I would walk to the offices, which was probably about a mile every day. You sat at your desk and you'd have to stay there. It wasn't like you can wander around and talk to another department or anything. Everybody smoked. So if you needed a fag and you didn't have one, you could go and ask one of your friends for one. And the tea lady came round in the morning, and sometimes there were cakes, sometimes there were donuts for nothing. And she'd come round in the afternoon about 3:30 and it would be the same.
There was some older men working in front of us. They were part of the cost office, but they weren't doing what we were. I'm not sure what they did. But one of them used to go down to the cafe in Church Street every morning and buy us cakes. It was funny, it was when smoking was allowed and I didn't smoke, but I was the only one, and I kept thinking, I'm feeling out of this. So I thought I'd better start smoking. Oh, the worst thing I ever did. But I did give it up. I didn't smoke for that long. But, you couldn't see across the office.
No.
When I think of it now, it must have been horrible.
Yes, it must have been.
Yeah.
But it was just how things were.
Yes, it was.
At the time, wasn't it?
It was.
We got down to working till 4:30.
Yeah.
They did have unions in the factory at that time, and so the union got it down to 4:30.
And how long did you have for your lunch break?
An hour.
We had tea breaks as well.
Did you?
In between.
You clocked off at 12, went home for an hour's lunch, and your mother was at home. Oh, obviously there was a lot of ladies working in the factory, but mother with a family and that, she was cooking your meal. So when you got in, I mean, the timing was absolutely perfect. I do take my hat off to them. You had that mental break, you had that nice meal. Most days it was a cooked meal, and I'd cycle back at 10 to 1. And then you clocked on again before 1 o'clock and worked in, certainly on Fridays we got, the unions got a slightly reduced hours from 40 to 38 or something. I find it a bit amusing nowadays that people say, I'm working from home 2 days a week or 3 days a week.
I would sometimes walk home for my lunch, or other times go out with friends for lunch. There were cafes in Calne then that we could often use. One particularly called Maslin's Cafe, which used to do a hot meal every day for very little money. There was a fish and chip shop, which we also used to go to, mostly Fridays, which was payday. We'd always go out for lunch on a Friday, which was payday.
Everybody had an hour for lunch. And the Strand was just full of people. People did stand about eating sandwiches and things. But the Woodlands was, it was like a community centre. And the original house there was done out as offices and a huge canteen. and you could all go up there.
And was that a sort of subsidised canteen?
Yes, yeah, it was really, really cheap. I think I can remember going there having like hammock and chips for £1. And the grounds were lovely, they had lovely gardens.
More on the woodlands later, but before we hear about the social life and the sports teams, there's work to be done. There was a wide range of jobs to do at the factory, but we all played our part in making the factory the place what it became. Let's head to the offices first.
All the girls, when you went in, first of all, you had to go into the postal department and deliver all the mail all around the offices. You had to go down there. There was a place called the Golden Mile where all the bosses were, and then you took all the things in there and you had to do it all properly and put it on the desk properly, you know, and if you didn't, then they'd say something to the chap that was in charge of it. It wasn't really a job you want to stay at very long, you know. I went into the invoicing department, and then after that I got put into the cost office, and I didn't really like it to start with because it was quite big, and so I went into the office manager and said, could I go back to the invoicing, because my friend was in there, and he looked at me, I was only 15, and he said, don't be such a little madam, get back into the cost office, which I did, because I was scared.
Gosh, you were only 15.
Yeah, because we left school earlier then, and yes, it was lovely. I got to like the cost office. It was really nice. When they did the wages, you had to go down like it was like in the cellars really, and put all the wages up, and you had to do it all by hand. You had every wage packet. You had to put all the different monies in the packet, and if it was a penny out, they wouldn't let you out. We were locked in this little room.
Were you?
And if the man that was in charge of it was quite funny. If an aeroplane went over, he pulled the blinds down. Whether he thought they were going to parachute out into the office. I mean, there was a lot of money, obviously, in there. We were doing the whole of the factory's wages.
In the postal department, it was mostly collating post, delivering post to different offices, using a franking machine, which they were very strict about. You're not making any mistakes because everyone cost money. I moved into the order department. I worked in the typing pool. And my last job was in the wages department, working at the wages for all of the factory workers. We would get the clock-in cards delivered to us, and we had to work out how many hours. If they were late, we'd deduct money from them. And we used a machine called a comptometer, which was a very, very early calculator, but everything was with buttons and it was very difficult. Have you ever seen a comptometer? You need to see one. And they're the most ridiculous things, and you had to do it twice to make sure it was right the first time.
The typing pool, there were 12 of us, and it was above the where the pie rooms were. So in the summer, the floor was quite hot. They sent I think he was there for about 3 months, a consultant who looked at everything and decided he was making the plans for what exactly we needed. So they were planning that we would have our own computer, and then we had to advertise to have the computer manager. So all this went out to all sorts of publications, and lots of letters came back. So then I had the job of sorting them, and I made a huge chart with their names, their ages, where they worked, what their qualifications were, and they chose half a dozen to interview. Well, the chap who eventually got the job, I was asked if I would be his secretary. So I was then secretary to eventually he was called the technical director.
I did all the typing for the boss, obviously, and all the personnel typing for Mr. Potter. And we had to make sure that all the holiday dates were written up for each department, for the wages department, so that they got their pay. I thought I'd tell you about the time when we had to evacuate the offices and the factory because we had a bomb scare. So everybody was evacuated except for me, because my boss said I had to go round and check all the ladies' toilets, the cisterns and everywhere. So that's what I did. It was only a bomb hoax. but it did disrupt the whole day. We had a printing department, and I don't know why, but every time they had overtime, I had to fill in special forms, which was every week because they always did overtime. But I had to also make sure that every year I got the licenses for them to slaughter the pigs. Otherwise, the factory would be at a standstill.
Well, I worked in that busy printing department, learning my trade as an apprentice printer. There was a lot of information to go on the packaging, and it all had to be carefully calculated.
I was in the lab, and it was almost like doing cooking because you had recipes for all the chemicals you needed. And it was devising and working out all the things you see on the back of packets nowadays, like the salt content, the calories, the carbohydrate, moisture. Everything we worked out was worked out to 4 places of a decimal point, but without calculator because we didn't have them then. So it was all done with logarithms. Yeah, we'd have a little card for each sort of experiment that we did, and write all the results down, and then they'd use that to print on the actual products. And they produced for Sainsbury's and Marks and Spencer's and their own brands, and there was always a higher meat content in Marks and Spencer's goods.
Of course.
Making the products for Marks and Spencer was an honour for C&T Harris, and those sausages and pies had to be spot on. They were fussy customers. All the staff will remember the high standards that were expected.
When Marks and Spencer's came, it was very, very pressurised. There was quite a lot of pressure, and the boss would have everybody in the office, and we had to get all the hygiene. It would all be given a good clean, although it was cleaned every night, but this one was extra. All the white coats had to be perfect, all the hats, because we had paper hats to put on. But they were very nice people, very friendly, and sometimes I had to take them out as well round the factory, even though they were big customers. If they came into my boss's office, I had to make sure that they had tea, but I didn't make that. We had a special tea lady who would do that for us, so I would get her to do it. I would always have to make sure that they had their coats ready, so that they could go out into the factory. We had to make sure everything was perfect when they came. Not just in the factory, also in the offices.
The lorries were always waiting for them pies. As soon as I do them, put them in the cooler, and they'd come and collect them from downstairs to wrap them up. And then they go out for the lorries.
I used to be the quickest one to do the eggs.
What, peeling the eggs?
Yeah. Because we used to do the long pies.
Mm-hmm.
And then melt them over as we used to do as well. Christmas has to be special for Marks and Spencer's over.
They had a better recipe, and you had to be more careful with Marks and Spencer's.
Yeah, we did.
If they got Marks and Spencer's and they wanted some new pies and that, we had a man there and he used to make these pies. Then I had to add a special jelly to put in them. And I says, whose silly devil's idea is this? And he said, sorry, but this is what they wanted. So I had to make them. Then he'd pick out what ones they wanted. Then as soon as they made up their minds what they wanted, they phoned Harris's straight to our pie room department, made the pies.
You always knew when Marks and Spencer's were coming round because they had a big
Yeah.
clean-up. You always knew when they were coming.
Quiche Lorraine, they would have cream and not milk. Nowadays, I don't think you can get any beef sausages as such, but we had customers in Arabic countries and they would only have beef sausages. sausages. No pork. I can remember there was some steak and kidney pies going to Marks and Spencer's. And in some cases, the gravy had bubbled over and was showing on the top. They wouldn't accept it, so they come back to the factory, and that was, we all had a chance to buy those cheap. We all had 10% off the Harris shop. So yes, there were the perks of the rejects, which all tasted perfectly all right.
A lot of hard work went into making all those products. Some of it was a bit messy, and of course some of it was very smelly too.
I had worked up the kitchen and I ended up in the sausages.
It was all wet skins. They had the wet skins and they put them on the tube and pulled them out.
So the men done that?
And then somebody weighed them, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, you done that.
The women done that.
Women done that, yeah.
Yeah.
The wet skins went on the
Yeah.
tube
Men
and
done
then the
that,
sausages
yeah.
come out.
And then you tied them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was obvious roles for men and roles for women in
They'd
that
fill
part.
the hoppers and that.
Yeah, but they were big, weren't they?
They'd fill the machines.
Yeah, they were big. Yeah.
And the supervisors and charge
Yeah.
hands, they had different coloured bands around their hat to tell you what
That's right.
what their sort of
Yeah.
rank was, wasn't it?
I don't know. Did you do the same job all the time then, Janet?
I used to wrap them, seal them.
Yeah, I used to see them as well.
Yeah, wrap them and
Used to
seal
come
them
down
on
and
the,
just seal
on the
them
little
up,
hot
yeah.
plate, wouldn't it?
Finger going already.
Yeah.
And then you pack them up into the thing and go along about, didn't it?
Yeah, they
That's
went
a
down.
header, isn't it?
They
Yeah.
went down the belt.
Yeah, they had a great big German Stronger machine, if you remember, the big red one, great big one. In this day and age, with the law, you would no way be allowed on the machinery because of your age. But there was no law in them days about health and safety and all that. So the amount of sausage made in a day was unbelievable. But again, this is where your knee went because you're pushing in the thing to make the machine go and stop sort of thing. This is when you did end up with bad knees and the cold floors. I don't think there's anybody in Calne without arthritis.
They used to say the only thing that didn't get used on a pig was the squeak.
That's right.
Yeah.
Something that didn't get wasted. And you always had a uniform as well, so you never had that fresh water from mother, did you?
You had your turban.
A wonderful turbans.
Tie it up in front.
Put that rope, put your hair in and
We
you tie it
still
up.
got a hair net at home that you wore.
She had a hair net.
Or had a
Did
hair
she?
net. And Dad had a white cap.
Was this just a job that you went to like a 9 to 5, or were you proud of what you did?
It meant a lot to me. I don't know about you, Janet, because we didn't know
Yeah.
nothing else really. I mean, I just felt comfortable in there, yeah. To be fair, I suppose it is like family really.
Probably because you used to have a laugh and
Yeah.
joke and
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
a nice group of you, and
Yeah.
if you've got that,
Yeah.
it goes a long way when
That's
you
right,
work,
it
doesn't
does.
Yeah.
It certainly does.
Yeah, makes time go quicker.
Yeah.
Of course, we were young then. We were only 15, so we'd sit and listen to the scandal and everything. When the laundry come back, we had to sort it out.
Yeah.
Was it alphabetically or something?
Yeah.
Did you pay for the laundry? No.
No. After you, we went from one to green.
What shoes did we wear then?
Your own. Your own shoes. Your own shoes.
Whatever you had on your feet when
You
you
had
got
all
down.
frost, didn't you? And you
Or
had,
you
you had
slipper.
headgear, but you had to wear your own footwear.
Yeah.
We had wellies. Clogs first, wellies after. Aprons down to your ankles.
Yeah.
Did you ever go on the pre-packed floor and have baked beans go in a small tin?
Yeah, because
And then you got to sit there with this tray in front with little sausages, no bigger than that, and you had to put them in the tin. But you can bet on it, the sauce will come out and it sets you all down the front.
Towards the end of my apprenticeship, work study was introduced to the factory. The consultant I was assigned to was allocated the pie making department, including the mixing of the dough that started at 6 o'clock in the morning. At that time, work study was using a stopwatch to study the work of individuals in order to eliminate hold-ups, wastage, waiting time, delays and that sort of thing. And the bonus for the workers at the end of that was a bonus scheme was introduced where they could increase their earnings. It wasn't generally popular with the workers because this feeling of being spied on. But I never had a problem with the people I went to study with a clipboard and a stopwatch, and thoroughly enjoyed that.
And what other sorts of jobs did you do in your apprenticeship?
The beauty of it was there was a variety of shops throughout the factory. I worked with an engineer who was responsible for maintaining the machines in the sausage making department. I worked with a chap called Harry Simpkins, who eventually became a foreman in the engineering department. He was the chap that did all the heavy stuff. At the byproducts factory, there were extractors that all the rubbish that they couldn't use from the pigs, they would heat up in these drums that rotated and turned it into bone meal. And Harry was the fitter who serviced those extractors. Now, when we were doing that job, because it was so smelly and you had quite a job to remove the smell from your body afterwards, we were paid an extra penny an hour. And I was then assigned to the best engineer Irish has had, called Peter Wilson. While I was working with Peter one day, we had an emergency from the boiler at the byproducts factory had broken down. This was just about 4:30, 5:15, we were finishing at 5 o'clock. He said, I don't know how long this will take. He said, I'm starving. And there was a couple more fitters there. I said, I'll sort it out. I went over to the pie department. My uncle, Reg King, was the foreman in the pie department. I said, I haven't got any spare pasties or pies. I said, we got an emergency up in the byproducts factory and we're all starving. No problem.
People who worked together often spent time together in their free time. The social club at the Woodlands was a great place to meet up.
The social club was used by everybody, practically everybody in the factory. If I remember rightly, I think it cost about a penny a week to join the social club. The Woodlands always had dances and was always open every Saturday evening for dancing, and we had lots of things. They did occasionally have people come in like comedians. I can remember Warren Mitchell, until Death Us Do Part, he came up. He was very good, and there was another one who I can't remember, but it was always full.
It was a lovely club and we did miss it, and used to be the same people. You know, you'd go in and they'd all be sat at the same tables, and if you sat at their table there was a problem. They used to have lovely things on New Year's Eve. We used to have some big bands sometimes. At one time they had little putting green up there, and when the children were young we used to take them up on a Saturday night, you know, and go around the putting green.
When you did go to the social events at Woodlands, did you enjoy doing those?
Yes, well, I belonged to the dancing, what I call it a dancing club,
right.
Carol and I, and we used to have a dance up there on a Saturday night.
And what sort of dancing did you do?
Modern,
ball, Latin.
Did you line dance?
Line dance.
Yes, we enjoyed our dancing, didn't we?
When I started working for Harris's, they said, "Come, you're going to play cricket?" I said, "No, I'm not interested in playing. I'm not good enough." And then I said, I did say, I'll play. Ended up being captain. And of course, with the Woodland Social Club, there was snooker, billiards.
Tuesdays and Thursdays was games night. There was darts league, there was skittles leagues, I played in it with a guy from the printing in the snooker and billiards league. So you look forward to that. The cricket club was good because although I was just what I call a village green cricketer, you know, if we were playing Westbury or Warminster, and then the following year they'd come to Calne because we had the cricket ground up Lickhill, you know, which is all houses now, had their own cricket ground, beautiful cricket ground, pavilion and that, tea, lovely after banter and tea. But when we used to go to other other clubs, Harris's used to bus a lot of workers in from the surrounding villages. I think they used to even bring them from Swindon and certainly this side of Bath. But they were what we call ex-military RAF coaches, painted in Harris's colours, lovely green with the Royal Warrant on the side, Wiltshire sausages, or something like that. But the seats were all wooden. They were just like crew buses from the RAF, and they were slatted seats each. If you can imagine batten, it wouldn't. You didn't get splinters stuck in your leg or anything like that. But they were hardwood battens, and they were curved, but they were no upholstery. And we went all the way to London once in those to play a game of cricket. Good fun though. We used to have a young lad, I won't say who it is, he was the scorer. He used to come along, a bit of fun, he used to do the scoring. He was very baby-faced, lovely lad he was. We used to go into a pub on the way home, perhaps to have a drink, and the first thing the barmaid would say, is he old enough to drink? And he was older than me. It was a smashing time with everybody.
We did have tennis courts, and I did use the tennis courts quite a bit. Would you like me to tell you what happened the first time I played Skittles?
Yeah, go on.
So you get 3 balls. First ball went straight through, and the second ball went straight through. I've never played before, and I threw the third ball and hit all 9 down, and they all said, oh, this is good, we got a good player.
Are you still friends with the people that you met there, even now?
Yes, I am. 1 or 2 of them I'm still friends with and go on holiday with as well.
There was a strong community spirit at Harris's, and the company got involved with events in Calne, for example, like the carnival. Workers' families also enjoyed parties and day trips to the seaside, to London.
We used to get on the coach and you'd have like a day at the seaside with ice creams and fish and chips. You'd go to the penny falls, the slot machines and all that lot. And then on the way back, everybody would sing and they would stop halfway back and get the crate of beer out the back of the coach. But they would be drinking beer and singing songs all the way back. It was such a fun day out.
All the children up to a certain age of employees always used to have a Christmas party in one of the floors in the factory. Oh, fantastic. We'd probably have a puppeteer, we played games. It was all this lovely spread in front of you. The Queen's coronation in 1953, we all had to come down to the town hall and we lined up to go up on the stage with our little short trousers and long socks on, and we would receive a lovely coronation mug from Sir John Bodener, who was the boss man in Harris's.
We also had a sports day, and that was held up, I got a feeling it was Beversbrook, because Harris owned land up there, and we used to have sports days, and I remember it because they used to involve all the children as well, not just the adults. So that was really good fun.
Do you remember the Harris lorries at the carnival?
Yes, I do. There was always full, and they used to throw out little pork pies and little packets of bacon.
There are lots of the lorries. They were always very willing to do their thing, and the drivers were always available. It was always on a Saturday. The factory was closed on a Saturday, and because it was a meat factory, they'd all be dressed up in silly uniforms and costumes, and they would throw pork pies off of the lorry towards you so you could catch all along the route.
My other uncle, he was actually in the Calne Silver Band, which was the Harris's band. He played the trumpet, but he was the band leader as well. So he would write the scores and rearrange stuff, and make it so that the whole band could play the music. They used to play carols at Christmas. They used to sort of march as well for the carnivals. He would be at the front with his staff, make sure everybody was marching right and hitting the right notes, things like that.
The factory was the town's main employer and had been part of life in Calne for many, many years. It was a shock for everyone to find it was closing.
I was horrified because I didn't see it coming. I didn't know they were going to knock it all down. It took the heart out of Calne for a time. It's back there now, but the whole community just sort of seemed to crumble away. The community spirit had been broken and it fractured the way the town was. Quite a few people had to move away to get work and stuff like that. Yeah, because everybody just assumed you worked in Harris's because more than half the town worked in Harris's.
What do you remember about that period when Harris's was closing?
Well, it was awful for a lot of people in Harris's. They got very depressed. They had to go to the doctors, and I remember that. But I wish we had Harris's shop now. Their bacon's lovely. Not like you get in the supermarkets today. Full of water. Lovely shop it was.
I never thought I was going to be out of Calne. I thought it was going to go on forever. Then somewhere powers that be felt, oh, we need a new factory. We all thought we were going to get a new factory. Then, it's like a lot of companies, it ceased to exist now. You never thought it was going to, like Westinghouse in Chippenham. You never thought it was going to go. You thought because Calne was the nucleus, it was never going to go. But all these places are no longer in existence.
I was down the town when they was auctioning everything off. The desks, everything. A lot of tanks, because I knew somebody who was after them for his beer company. My typewriter I would have loved, because every year the engineer would come round and clean all the typewriters, because don't forget we didn't have computers, it was only typewriters. And he would come in my office and say, I know I don't have to do yours because you clean yours every week. I said, I know, but he still had to do it. And I wish to this day that I had gone in and bought the old telephone that I had in my office, but I never thought about it.
C&T Harris were remembered as good employers who cared about their staff.
They were very conscientious with their workers and they always tried to address any issues that they had. Also, the management were really supportive of, because it was almost like the management knew that they were the umbrella over the workers. So they had to protect their workers in their sections. It was just very community minded and people orientated, even though it was quite a fast-paced place. They still had time for people.
My father had started work in Harris's as a 15-year-old in the retail shop. He was 7 years in the army and he got his job back, and he worked his way up then to become the actual manager of the shop in the end. He came back in 1946, I think it was. I've got a lovely letter, a 3-page letter by one of his officers. He really told the story of my dad in the regiment. And his sort of parting line at the end was, he said, if Mr. Ponting is offered his job back, I think this letter will certainly tell you how I felt about his ability. And they even included that 7 years in Harris's when in his period of working, nearly 50 years there he did there. That is real benevolence.
Did you have a good relationship with your managers?
Yes, I did, especially my manager. He was very good. I used to babysit for him and I used to do his shopping for his cigarettes, and he was an avid philatelist, the stamp collector, so he used to give me his money and say, go to the post office, you know what I like, and I had to go and buy all the sheets of stamps for him. He was a very good boss, and everybody looked after each other. Yeah, we all part of a family.
Thank you to all the former workers from Harris's who shared their memories, including Ashley Ponting, who narrated the story. The full recordings of their conversations with local volunteers will be archived at the Wiltshire and Swindon History Centre. The music was performed and provided by Calne Silver Band. The C&T Harris Oral Histories project was produced by yesterday's Story CIC with support from Calne Heritage Centre. It was funded by Historic England's Everyday Heritage Grant Programme, celebrating working class histories.